You keep vacillating back and forth between individual and then aggregate, tell them what they want. I think we have to acknowledge that this is becoming an individual world. It's about me and my preferences and what I want. So instead of surveying and figuring out what this artificial aggregate community wants, we have to start thinking about give an individual what they want. We are consumers of work. Treat me that way, right? I think we have to keep each other honest on this whole going back to, well, this is what this population wants. How would you possibly know that if I'm a female engineer with 17% that I want this and then I must cater to you? If we're going to try to figure all that out, Jerry, we might as well figure out how to give everybody whatever they want. Go to this infrastructure that says, here's information, let me get it. I'll throw it out because I've listened to it.
But this segmentation. This group is saying it's not practical to do that.
But I'm saying the opportunity here is segmentation to the individual, right? We want to put people in buckets and channels, and we'll never be able to do that in this world that we live in. So let's get on to where I can customize my whole world when I'm buying something. Other people buy this. You know, look at the technology of that and start thinking. If I want to be able, Chris, in your world, to do some of this cool stuff, I got to start getting to you as an individual instead of you as an aggregate part of something else that's a sub-aggregate of another something that's a sub-aggregate. We'll never get there. Well, right? So think of the individual and what they need. Therein lies some of the solution. So Bill of Rights to me says to an individual, not to a group of people.
Well, I think we as recruiters are not
Just
always...
saying. Sorry.
I mean, we're great at listening for key things that are maybe hiring indicators for us, right? Talent indicators. We're not always so great. We're not always such great listeners. I mean, we were at a social in, I think it was in Dallas. I think Eric was there, and there may have been some others here that were there. And we literally were listening into, there was a candidate asking a recruiter about what it was like to work at that place. And the recruiter kept coming back with, well, you know, it's really great. You get to do this and that in that job, and here's the description. And the candidate would say, yeah, but what's the culture like? Really I mean, what are the people like? Parking is fantastic. You're going to be able to sit in this location. And this, you know, you came back and he said, well, really though, what about decision making and how does that work? You know, internal in the hierarchy. And he said, and it's just, you know, we've been at this facility for so long. And finally, the candidate just said, well, I absolutely love porcupines. And the recruiter turns around and says, you know, porcupines, what? Finally gets his attention, and the job seeker says, I'm sorry, I thought we were talking about shit that didn't matter. So, I mean, you know.
It doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. We think it matters, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, it does not matter to the candidate who is really interested in working at your organization.
But there are some things that do matter to that candidate. And we need to be able to figure out, not necessarily us figure it out, we need to be in a position to ask them what matters. Now, sometimes we're going to have to help that person who is not articulating very well exactly what mattered to him that he wanted to hear about a recruiter's job. And so somewhere in all of this is the ability for people to begin to articulate more clearly and more effectively as they grow up in their career, what in fact they do, what in fact matters to them at this point in time.
See, Jerry, I think what matters to candidates, what matters to
Get her back. Sorry.
What matters to candidates changes through the candidate process, right? Yeah. A first or a second interview demands feedback, personal feedback. Right? An application of a resume a auto response might suffice.
So how many people give feedback to the interview?
That's a great question.
Right? How many people say, you know, we do the, oh, we're sorry you're not the most qualified candidate, but how many people tell them why they weren't the most qualified candidate? Disney does that, right?
Wouldn't it just burn you up if that you're going for an interview, you take your time, you may take a day off from work, right? You go in for an interview, and then 2 weeks later, you get a note. Thank you very much. You know, we're not interested in so many terms. I mean, to me, that doesn't get to the respect of what candidates deserve.
Hey guys, so we've got 10 minutes from a time check, and we got a caller, Jerry. So I'd like to take the caller if we can do that.
But find Anna.
All right.
I feel bad. She was standing up there for 10 minutes.
Yes.
Yes, we do have a question from the line of Bill Borman. Please go ahead.
Bill, that was a collective, right? You got to work on your brand, buddy. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm in. I've got a collective eye. It's my question. I'm live in Boston. The delays. There's a little bit of delay on the feed. My question is, how does just-in-time sourcing match with candidate experience when you're talking about keeping in touch and acknowledgement, Gerry?
Let me make sure I understand the question. So the question is, how does just-in-time sourcing match candidate experience?
So, Bill, I look at this and say, when I, as the recruiter, reach out to you and tap you on the shoulders and say, I want to introduce you to my brand, what is now my responsibility to you to steer and be responsible for that candidate experience? Is that a good summary? We're going to answer that question. So go ahead with answering that.
You know, I'd go back to the transparency issue. I know I'm going to have a script, and I'm going to focus on different ways in which I'm going to try to tell somebody what's going to come next, what my value proposition and what's going to come next, and then I'm going to test to see whether I've been heard, and what that individual needs. At this point, I don't know what else I can do, because this is obviously a specific instance in which I've reached out to somebody and said, I've watched you, I see you, here are some of the things that I think I would like to match within my company. I would like to engage you about a couple things, and here's a promise. If you give me 10 minutes, if you give me 5 minutes to engage, here's what you're going to get as a result of that. And I want to test those pieces out and see whether they resonate.
Gerry, we got another caller on the line?
Yeah. Anybody have something else in terms of response to that?
No, I think that was good.
Anybody out there have anything? Okay.
Sorry.
Go.
I'm managing your timeline now.
Thanks, Gerry.
We do have a question from the line of Ceci Munson. Please go ahead.
I was wondering if anyone's having problems similar to what I'm having. Not only do I have to communicate with the candidate and engage them, but after they don't get the interview, that my client says, no, I don't want that person, I reply to them, I let them know, and I feel, this is the way we're going to go, we're going to move on to another candidate. Afterwards, I find that they forget that I've replied to them. And so now I have to keep track of not only my engagement with the candidate, but that I followed up with them and the emails that I've sent them to say that they did not get that interview. Are y'all having that same frustration? I'm feeling as though that they're so threadbare, these candidates, that they are needing constant communication.
My reaction is from somebody who was in large corporations, no longer is, in part because I lack the patience to deal with the fact that there are crappy candidates, and I'm going to tell them off. I talk to great recruiters every day. Most of us do. Many of you in this room are great recruiters. You know how to handle lousy candidates. That's right. You learn how to engage them in a way that says, we're not going to be hiring you. Not now, not ever. And do it in a way that hopefully gives them some value, some sense of self, around that. You do it the best way you can, but you're into trying to get to those candidates who in fact are going to move forward in the long run, and do the best job you can with those candidates who are not going to be moving forward. And that's what we really owe them. And if it's the truth, if it's the hard truth, I think we owe them the hard truth. But we have a lot of lawyers, by the way, that get in the way with that. That's right. And fundamentally, my feeling about lawyers is that they're paid to give us their idea of no risk. Risk mitigation. And we should be paid as leaders to say, we accept some level of risk because it's the right thing to do.
That is this right here.
Amen. Cool.
Do you have a minute?
I'm so happy. Give Anna a hand. She put up with standing there and not getting any response.
Oh, well, I've often find that this discussion, I've heard it before, and it's always a good discussion. And I'm wondering if the real problem isn't that we overcomplicate it and just don't want to admit that it's awful to be bearer of bad news. You did not get the job. Your application doesn't fit. Your personality does not fit in our culture. I mean, I recruit recruiters to speak. And I know how hard it is to tell a really nice person, you ain't cutting it. Okay? And that's, sometimes I feel that we overcomplicate things because it's so hard to have to say, no, not a good fit.
I guess that's why some of the competencies for recruiters is continuing to shift, to be able to incorporate more capabilities to basically understand the job in a different way. As Master was talking about earlier, not just the job, but the projects, if you will. We're forced as recruiters to have greater skills in how we manage and handle our hiring managers. We are, engaged in a little bit of counseling to some degree, if in fact we are committed to doing more of that. You see it more certainly from third party than you do from the folks inside corporations. So it's continuing to train and require recruiters to operate at a particular level. The question is, we have never really, in my opinion, embraced the fact that we are going to find a way to take the principles that you guys have been talking about and express them in very specific things. And I know as we come down to the end, so I put up for the flag, running up the flag, that you must acknowledge my interest. If I were a candidate, I want you to acknowledge my interest. I want you to accommodate any special needs I may have for access. If I'm military, if I'm disabled, if I'm whatever, fundamentally I think there are different ways into your corporation that I may need some special access. I want you to establish some kind of company connection to me so that I can learn more about your company, and it may be about your culture. It may be about specifics in there, but I want to be able to see that you've done that. I want to know what the hell the next steps are, because every company has different next steps. Guarantee me privacy and protection, communicate status, and deliver when feedback and guidance are offered or required. I see that as my candidate Bill of Rights. If I were a young professional going into almost any corporation, I would demand that, and I would choose companies based on that. On the other hand, there's a lot of people who aren't. So I like to tilt at windmills here, but I would challenge any company to figure out for yourself, what do your principles actually mean in actions? And then hold recruiters, train recruiters, and hold them accountable for doing that. And if it's 100%, if it's 100% of every job when it's closed, that 100% of the candidates are informed that the job is now closed, then that rec can't be closed in your system until that happens, in my opinion. I think that we could do anything we want to do. So I challenge the fact that it's not practical. We can do anything we want to do.
Fantastic conversation. Would you agree? Yeah. So this is something that 50 minutes just scratches the surface on. So I'd actually, we were just talking about this. This is an entire series of blog posts and conversations that need to probably have already started with some of you who are participating from your computers. But I think there are a lot of ideas in this room. I'd like for one of you guys to step on this, up on this, and start a conversation on Monster Thinking with us about it. Keep that blog roll going with that to be able to flesh some of these things out. There was a tremendous amount of conversation going on the chat room and on the Twitter stream with this. I know you guys will also comment on that afterwards. Keep this dialogue going. If people matter, if we fundamentally believe people matter, we must put a line in the sand on candidate experience. So that is all the time that we have. What we're going to do is take a break now for lunch. So we've got a little bit of an extended commercial break. So we'll see everyone back on the live stream at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, and we will talk brand, which brand matters more, and when good branding goes bad, with John Nicolasian, Sarah White, and Mike Raymer. Thank you all for contributing to this conversation, and we'll see you back here in a few. Thank you guys very much.